The humidity on Isla de la Sombra was not merely weather, it was a physical presence. It pressed against the floor-to-ceiling impact glass of my villa like a lover seeking entry, heavy with the scent of crushed frangipani, salt, and the ozoned tang of an approaching storm. I stood in the centre of the great room, the cool travertine beneath my bare feet grounding me. In my hand, a glass of vintage Pinot Noir, a 2015 Domaine de la Romanée-Conti swirled, catching the ambient light. It was an obscenely expensive wine, the kind Damien would have hoarded in his climate-controlled cellar to impress potential investors, never tasting it himself. I drank it because I liked the way the tannins dried my tongue, a sharp, earthy reminder that I was alive, that I was consuming the world rather than being consumed by it. Miss Vance. The voice was low, gravel over velvet. Reese. I didn't turn immediately. I watched my reflection in the darkened glass. The woman staring back was a stranger to the memories that sometimes woke me screaming in the night. The original Elise Vance, the woman whose body I now inhabited, had been a willow branch, pliable, weeping, easily snapped. Her skin had been pale from days spent indoors, waiting for a husband who never came home, her eyes perpetually red-rimmed from tears shed over a man who saw her as nothing more than a biological spare tire for his true love, Lila. My reflection was different. My skin was bronzed by the equatorial sun. My hair, once long and styled in the demure waves Damien preferred, was now a sharp, asymmetrical bob that exposed the nape of my neck. My muscles were defined, hard-won from hours of Krav Maga and swimming against the currents of the bay. I looked like what I was, a fortress. "Tell me, Reese," I said, taking a slow sip of the wine, "is it a drone or a boat this time?" "Neither," Reese replied. I could hear the faint rustle of his tactical gear as he stepped closer. He smelled of gun oil, peppermint, and the crisp, sterile scent of starched linen. He was the finest security contracts money could buy. Formerly SAS, formerly a ghost, now the warden of my paradise. "It's a courier. Diplomatic tags." I turned then. Reese stood by the entrance to the sunken living area, his face a mask of professional indifference, though his eyes, sharp grey flints, betrayed his wariness. "Diplomatic?" I raised an eyebrow. "Damien doesn't have friends in the State Department. He bought a few senators, certainly, but diplomats require a finesse he lacks." "It's not US diplomatic," Reese corrected. "It's Swiss, a representative from the International Red Cross, or so their transponder claims. They're requesting permission to dock at the North Pier. They claim it's a humanitarian wellness check." I laughed. The sound was dry, devoid of humour. Humanitarian. That's rich. Damien is evolving. He knows he can't send thugs anymore, so he's trying to shame me out of hiding. He's weaponizing altruism. "Orders?" I walked over to the sprawling white sofa and sat down, crossing my legs. I placed the wine glass on a coaster made of petrified wood. Every object in this house was chosen by me, for me. There was not a single item that Damien had touched, not a single memory of the cold, sterile mansion we had shared. "If they are Swiss, they love procedure," I mused. "Let them dock. But Reese, full protocol. I want the K9S visible, I want the snipers on the ridge, and I want the guests to be processed through the decontamination airlock. Make them feel like they are entering a biohazard zone. Because as far as I'm concerned, anything connected to Damien Kincaid is a virus." "Understood." Reese tapped his earpiece and turned to leave, but he paused. "Elise." It was rare for him to use my first name. It was a breach of the wall between employer and employee, one I allowed only because Reese had seen me at my worst, shaking with phantom rage, vomiting from the stress of the transmigration integration, screaming at ghosts he couldn't see. "Yes? If it is him or her..." "It won't be," I said, my voice turning to ice. "Damien is a coward. He sends proxies. And Lila is likely hooked up to a dialysis machine, whining about how the universe is unfair because she can't drink vodka tonics while her kidneys fail. They won't come personally. Not yet. If they do, Reese said, his hand drifting unconsciously to the sidearm at his hip, the standing order remains. The standing order remains, I confirmed. Broken legs heal, broken boundaries do not. While Reese managed the diplomat, I retreated to my sanctuary, the server room. It was the beating heart of my retaliation, a cold room humming with the sound of cooling fans and processing power. Walls of monitors glowed with streams of data. This was where I spent my nights. When I had awakened in Elise's body, lying in a hospital bed after a suicide attempt, which I knew was actually a staged overdose by Lila's paid nurse to weaken my organs for harvest, I had two things: the memories of the original plot and the ruthlessness of a woman who had clawed her way up from poverty in her previous life. The plot was simple. Elise Vance was the villainess. She was rich, haughty, and desperately in love with Damien Kincaid. Damien loved Lila, a fragile white lotus with a mysterious, convenient illness that required constant blood transfusions and organ transplants. Elise was the only genetic match, the rare Schnall blood type, golden blood. The story was a torture porn of Elise giving pieces of herself to save her rival, hoping Damien would love her, only to be discarded and die alone. I had rewritten the script in the lawyer's office 2 years ago. The pen felt heavy. Damien was staring at me, his eyes cold blue chips of ice. It's a lot of money, Elise. More than you deserve. I looked at the check. $500 million. Half his liquid assets. He was cash poor, asset rich, and leveraged to the hilt. He needed me gone so he could marry Lila and use her tragic illness to garner sympathy for his failing biotech IPO. I don't want your love, Damien, I had said, my voice raspy from disuse. I want your liquidity. I signed. I took the check. And as I walked out, I whispered to the stand lawyer, "Short Kincaid Farmer, trust me." Now, on the screens before me, I watched the spiderweb I had spun. I hadn't just taken the money and ran. I had invested it, aggressively. I used my knowledge of the book's plot, future tech trends, political scandals, hidden resource deposits, to multiply my fortune. I was now worth 3 times what Damien was. I pulled up the live feed from the North Pier. The camera showed a pristine white boat docking. A man in a suit stepped off. He held a briefcase. He looked nervous. The Malinois dogs, straining at their leashes, held by my masked guards, were doing their job. I put on my headset. "Kari, run facial rec." "Already done, boss," Kari's voice chirped in my ear. She was in Tokyo, my remote cyber specialist, a digital wraith I paid in crypto. Name is Stefan Vogel. He's a lawyer, not a diplomat. Specialized in international arbitration and surrogacy contracts. Surrogacy? I scoffed. They want my womb now too? Lila's kidneys failed, so she can't carry an heir? Looks like it. Kincaid's stock is wobbling. Investors are nervous about the lack of succession. He needs a baby to secure the board's confidence. I leaned back, the leather chair creaking. It was grotesque. It was perfect. "Send him to the solarium," I said. "Let him sweat in the humidity. I'll be down in 20 minutes. Stefan Vogel looked like he was melting. The solarium was a glass box filled with tropical orchids and carnivorous pitcher plants. I kept the temperature at a steady 90 degrees with 80% humidity. It was good for the plants. It was terrible for men in wool suits. I walked in wearing a white silk caftan that floated around me like a cloud. I wore sunglasses, though it wasn't bright. It was a power move. "Miss Vance," Vogel stood up, wiping sweat from his receding hairline. Thank you for receiving me. I know who you represent, I cut him off, walking past him to inspect a blooming amorphophallus titanium. It smelled faintly of rotting meat. You represent a man who thinks no is just a negotiation tactic. Sit down, Mr. Vogel. You look flushed. He sat, perching on the edge of the wicker chair. Miss Vance, my client, Mr. Kincaid, wishes to extend an olive branch. Is the olive branch made of subpoenas? I asked, touching the velvet petal of a flower. He is concerned for your well-being. He knows you have been isolated. He worries about your mental state. My mental state is excellent. My portfolio is up 40% this quarter. How is Damien's? Vogel cleared his throat. Mr. Kincaid is facing challenges. Miss Lila's health has deteriorated. The experimental treatments were unsuccessful. Tragic, I said flatly. I suppose she needs a kidney. Or is it liver this time? I lose track of the menu. It is complex, Vogel said, opening his briefcase. She requires a specific enzyme therapy that can only be synthesized from a genetically compatible living donor's bone marrow. Repeated extractions over 6 months. I turned to him, lowering my sunglasses. Bone marrow. He wants to hook me up to a machine and suck the life out of my bones for 6 months. He is prepared to offer substantial compensation and reinstatement. Reinstatement? Remarriage, Vogel said, as if offering me a crown. He is willing to annul the divorce. You would be Mrs. Kincaid again. You would have your status back. He asks only for your help in saving Lila and, perhaps, an heir. The silence stretched. The only sound was the buzzing of a fly trapped against the glass. I walked over to Vogel. I leaned down, my face inches from his. I smelled his fear. It smelled like cheap aftershave and desperation. Mr. Vogel, I said softly, do you know what I did with the wedding ring Damien gave me? I assume you sold it? I had it crushed, I said. I had it pulverized into dust and mixed into the concrete foundation of the sewage treatment plant on the south side of this island. That is what I think of his status. I straightened up. Go back to your boat. Tell Damien that if he wants my marrow, he can come and get it. But tell him to bring a body bag for himself. Vogel scrambled to stand. Miss Vance, be reasonable. He is desperate. He has hired consultants. Mercenaries, I corrected. I know. Why do you think you were met by men with automatic rifles? Get off my island, Vogel, before I feed you to the pigs. Vogel's departure was the calm before the storm. I knew Damien. I stopped wondering why he didn't use his capital to find golden blood from some other poor woman. His ego was a fragile construct. Rejection wouldn't make him sad. It would make him homicidal. He would rationalize it. She's crazy. She doesn't know what's good for her. I have to force her for her own good. I will make her do it for her own good. 3 days later, the escalation began. It started with the cyber attacks. Kaori deflected them with lazy ease. Script, kiddies, she messaged me. He hired a botnet from Russia, blunt force, crude. Then came the drones. I was on the terrace practicing yoga when the hum began. It sounded like a swarm of angry hornets. 4 quadcopters rose over the tree line, cameras blinking red. Reese! I didn't break my pose. Warrior 3 made me sweat a little. A crack echoed, then another. Reese stood on the balcony above, a suppressed designated marksman rifle in his hands. Pop, pop, pop. The drones fell out of the sky, smoking ruins crashing into the jungle canopy. Clay pigeons, Reese called down. He's testing the perimeter. He's trying to annoy me, I said, straightening up. He wants me to make a mistake. He wants me To run. Are we running? No, I said, looking at the smoke rising from the trees. We're digging in. That night, the power to the island was cut. The undersea cable was severed. The lights died. The AC hum faded. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. Generator 1 active, the automated system announced within 10 seconds. The lights flickered back on, powered by the solar banks and the backup diesels. He cut the fiber line too, Kari radioed via the satellite uplink. We're on Starlink now. Bandwidth is lower, but we're online. He's blinding us, I said to Reese in the command center. He's coming tonight. Agreed. The weather is turning, storm front moving in, high seas, perfect cover for an amphibious assault. I looked at the map of the island. It was a fortress, yes, but every fortress has a weakness. They'll come for the generator, Reese said, pointing to the schematic. Kill the power, kill the alarms, breach the villa. How many? If he's desperate. 2 teams, maybe 12 men, ex-military contractors who lost their morals somewhere in the sandbox. I felt a cold thrill run down my spine. Fear? No, adrenaline. In my old life, I was an accountant. I fought with spreadsheets. Now, I was fighting for my flesh and blood. Let them land, I said. Reese looked at me. Mom? We have the home field advantage. I don't want a shootout on the beach where stray rounds might hit the village on the main island. Let them breach the perimeter, lure them into the jungle. And Reese? Yes? Release the prototypes. Reese grinned. It was a terrifying expression. The Dobermans? The drones, I corrected. The hunter-killers. I want to see if the investment paid off. The storm hit at midnight. Rain lashed the villa like buckshot. Thunder rattled the bones of the house. I sat in the command center, watching the thermal feeds. The jungle was awash of cool blues and greens. Contact, Kari whispered. Sector 4, beach landing, Zodiacs. I saw them, ghostly white heat signatures moving up the beach. They moved with professional discipline, hand signals, covering fire positions. They're bypassing the main gate, Reese said, his voice calm over the comms. Heading for the utility shed. Wait for it, I said, my finger hovering over the console. The team of 6 men moved into the dense foliage. Now! I pressed the key. In the jungle, floodlights didn't turn on. Instead, speakers hidden in the trees blasted a sound, a high-frequency, disorienting screech mixed with the recorded roar of a jaguar. The men froze. Then, from the undergrowth, the drones launched. These weren't the fragile camera drones Damien used. These were squat, terrestrial drones modeled after Boston Dynamics dogs, the kinds you see getting kicked by engineers on videos online, but these were painted matte black and equipped with tasers and pepper spray cannons. On the screen, chaos erupted. The mercenaries opened fire. Muzzle flashes bloomed like white flowers. But the drones were low, fast and agile. Target Alpha down, Reese reported. Tased. Target. Bravo incapacitated. Pepper spray. 2 of the men panicked. They broke formation, running blindly into the jungle. Reese, heard them, I ordered. Don't let them reach the villa. I'm on it. I watched as Reese moved through the jungle. He didn't use a gun. He used the darkness. He was a shadow among shadows. I saw him drop from a tree branch onto the point man, a sleeper hold executed with surgical precision. It was over in 20 minutes. 12 men, all incapacitated, zip-tied and lined up in the mud of the service road. I walked out to meet them. I wore a raincoat over my tactical gear, the ruby necklace hidden beneath the Kevlar. Reese pulled the mask off the leader. He was a scarred man with hard eyes. Who sent you? I asked, though I knew. He spat at my boots. Go to hell, bitch. I sighed. Reese, call the local authorities. Tell them we caught pirates attempting to kidnap a high net worth individual. The local prison is unpleasant, I hear. Wait, the man said, his bravado cracking. Kincaid. It was Kincaid. He said it would be easy. He said you were just a socialite playing house. He was wrong, I said. He didn't pay you enough. I turned to Reese. Give our friends on the main island a call about these guys. Oh, and let's send Damien a photo. Just one. Of his elite team trussed up like turkeys. And add a caption, something like, your army has been liquidated just like your assets. The failed raid broke something in Damien. That pic of my masked men and me posing next to his goon smoking luxury cigars probably hurt him more than a bullet. The next morning, I didn't wait for him to call. I initiated. I sat in my office, the storm outside replaced by a blindingly bright morning. I signaled Kaori. Execute protocol, guillotine. With pleasure, she replied. It was a multi-pronged strike. First, the financial markets. Kaori dumped the 20% of Kincaid Enterprises stock I had secretly accumulated through shell companies. The sudden sell-off triggered a panic. The price plummeted. Trading was halted, but the damage was done. Second, the press. My PR firm released the dossier, not just the photos of Lila snorting cocaine and draping herself over multiple people in his living room, but the emails. The emails where Damien discussed bribing the ethics committee to bypass organ donor lists. The emails where he admitted to falsifying safety data on his new heart valve. Third, the call. I dialed his personal number. He answered on the first ring. Elise. His voice was a wreck. Turn on the news, Damien. I can't. They're outside. The reporters. The police. Good. Then you have time to listen. You ruined me, he sobbed. Everything. My legacy. My company. You ruined yourself, I said, my voice steady. I just turned on the lights. Lila, she's irrelevant, I said. She's a symptom of your disease. You thought you could use people, Damien. You thought I was just a bag of blood with a checkbook. You forgot that even a blood bag can burst. What do you want? I want you to look out the window, I said. Do you see the police cars? They aren't there for a traffic violation. I sent the evidence of the kidnapping attempt to the FBI and the bribery evidence to the SEC. Prison? He sounded like a child. I can't go to prison. Then you should have signed the divorce papers and left me alone. But you had to send your people to me, thinking I was weaker overseas. You just had to be the alpha. I'm sorry, Elise, please. I'm sorry. Apology rejected. I hung up. 3 months later. Isla de la Sombra was quiet. The security team had been scaled back, though Reese remained. He said he liked the climate. I suspected he liked the company. I sat on the terrace, reading the news on my tablet. Disgraced CEO Damien Kincaid sentenced to 15 years for fraud and conspiracy. Socialite, Lila Vane arrested for possession and solicitation. I swiped the screen off. A text suggesting that a certain very infamous CEO and a certain pampered and pretty socialite needing some extra attention in their cells was sent directly to a friend of mine back home. A moment later, my phone buzzed. I'll be sure they'll be taken care of for a very long time. Expressionlessly, I shut it off. Package for you, Reese said, placing a small box on the table. From who? From the auction house. You won the bid. I opened it. Inside was the Heart of the Martyr, the ruby necklace Damien had bought for Lila, the symbol of his devotion. It had been sold to pay his legal fees. I lifted it. The stones were cold, dark as dried blood. The chain that held it up was gold, gleaming in the light. The irony of it all made me smile. Shall I put it in the vault? Reese asked. No, I said, clasping it around my neck. I think I'll wear it. I walked to the edge of the terrace. The ocean was a vast, glittering expanse of turquoise. I took a deep breath. The air was sweet. I was the villainess in their story, but in mine, I touched the cold rubies at my throat. In mine, I was the queen, and the queen was finally, irrevocably free.